Hi, thank you for joining BIP Chat and listening in to this very exciting conversation. Actually, we're going to be quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Confrontational here. I think we're going to excite you and listen in for this. And we're going to be talking about talent acquisition today. And it's something that no matter who you are, no matter how small your business, no matter how big your business, that is got to be an important subject to you, because you're only as good as the people that you have around you in your business. And I'm talking to Keith Langbo today. So before I introduce Keith, I'm afraid Keith's going to be just looking at the screen while I just create a little bit of context here about BIP Chat. So BIP stands for Business is Personal, juxtaposition of any horrible person that's ever said to you, which they said to me, Penny, I don't have to like you. It's business. It's not personal. And I thought, this person isn't going to be very nice to know. Funnily enough, they didn't turn out to be particularly nice to know. I think that in a world of digital, in a world of enhancing AI, the human touch, the getting on with people, but most of all, also getting on with yourself and living by your own values are very important. So Business is Personal is like a movement, but it's also a community of the most incredible experts. Thomas builds this community. He's had over 5,000 Zooms, and we've had 2,000 people to our guest lunches to find people who like us and our values and match it and also have great expertise. What this has given us, which is this unintended consequence, is now the most amazing suppliers for you to be able to find inside our community, because we've done a lot of the work. And a lot of business now has to be values-based as well as expertise-based. So today we're talking about talent acquisition. And Keith, very excited to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good to be here, Penny. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's start off by giving a little bit of context of who you are, the fact that you've just moved over, building a branch of your business from the States to the UK. So let's get some context on who Keith is.
That's right. Well, thank you again, Penny. It's funny, as you talk about the business is personal, or the person that said that to you, it makes me want to say talent acquisition or recruiting is personal. And no matter how much we are taking the humans out of it, we need to put the humans back in, because it is very much personal. So I might steal that one from you.
Lovely.
Recruiting is personal. So I was fortunate to start a business called Celica about 13 years ago, based in Raleigh, North Carolina. We very much were in the recruiting space, but with the idea that when you go to recruit for a company, you should understand their culture and their values as much, if not more, than what we're just looking for from a keyword or experience standpoint. And quite frankly, because I feel like the recruiting industry or the talent acquisition space has really become commoditized over the past 2-3 decades or so, with the incoming of all of these different solutions, whether it be I was in this pre-internet, I was in it, pre-job boards or pre-LinkedIn and pre-AI, and now all of these tools that are coming in that in some ways continue to take the people out of the people business. And so Celica has been focused very much on keeping people in the people business, utilizing those tools like AI, and we should probably talk about AI because everyone wants to talk about AI today, and using those tools to help become more efficient, more productive, but still keeping people in the people business and improving the processes. So Celica is all about trying to, as we say, redefine the recruiting experience, because I think it's broken. And so been doing that in States for 13 years, having a lot of fun. We've always had some transatlantic business, but we've never had our feet on the ground overseas. And so took it as an opportunity with my family to move over to the UK and settle just outside of London. And we are here now. So I've been busy for the last 3 months trying to meet as many people as I can. And thanks a lot to BIP. We just covered a bunch of names in our prep for this of all the incredible BIPers that I've had a chance to meet and many to come. But just been meeting as many as I can and learning as much as I can. So happy to be here, still trying to figure some things out, but excited to talk about talent acquisition and recruiting today.
I'm really excited about this because I think people know that I write about the importance of this human touch in this digital world that's emotionally disconnected us. And something I find so fascinating is how people constantly talk about organizations having toxic cultures and poor leadership. And yet I don't think I've met as many leadership coaches in my life as I have over the last 5 years. And so there's something there's something going on and let's think about this, it must start with the recruitment process at the beginning, the values of the business and how they bring someone in and the warm experience that that person has.
That's
so when
exactly
you say
right.
it's broken, when you say it's broken, can you give me some of the symptoms to that so that we can hook onto this?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Beware. Let's make this an hour-long podcast. Just kidding, everybody. First of all, I want to define something. I want to define recruiting versus talent acquisition. Just as I use those words, they're not quite interchangeable. I consider talent acquisition the entire life cycle of what it takes to acquire talent and essentially retain talent, right? That's our talent acquisition model. The recruiting piece is sort of the part in the middle that everyone knows about. This is the let's go out and find a candidate someplace, interview them, select them, make an offer, hire them, and get them onboarded. It's sort of the guts of talent acquisition, if you will. But I don't believe them to be the same. And as I said before, I'll kind of say that I think the recruiting piece, or I very much will say the recruiting piece is broken in how we do it, and I'll dive into that. But I will go further to say that I think talent acquisition is broken in its entirety. So for the sake of this conversation and for sake of what Celica and what we do and what we work with clients on, I'll break it into 3 separate stages of talent acquisition. The first stage, we'll call it pre-hire, right? The obvious stuff, the stuff that has to happen before you start doing what most people would call recruiting. So there's the pre-hire stage. The second stage is the hire stage. This is where we interview and select what most people would call recruiting. The third stage is post-hire. So pre, then hire, then post-hire, right?
Nice.
Let's talk specifically about pre-hire. I think most companies and most recruiters out there, whether they're in-house or agencies, are very quick to reactively fill positions right now because somebody just left the company, we just landed a new project, we have a new need, whatever it may be, and we are very quick to then go out and say, we need to replace Susie or whomever it is that just left the team, or we need to replace this thing. And so they jump very quickly from that reactive need into the hiring phase. They often don't take the time in the pre-hire phase to step back, slow down for a bit. Let's figure out where our gaps are. Let's figure out what our existing team is. Let's do a workforce assessment. Let's do a job assessment. Let's figure out what we have so that we can tap into our existing team members and perhaps some of their other interests or their other skills or things like that to make them happier. Then redefine the job. What are we looking for? So let's not replace Susie or whatever John Doe candidate that left. Let's take this as an opportunity to strengthen our team, to strengthen our team's engagement and our team's overall retention, quite frankly, by doing an assessment on what we have today, redefining what the gap analysis is, and then going and determining what is it we really need to hire today. I think too often we try to hire the person that just left, which quite frankly, you're never going to get. You're not going to get somebody that comes in with the in-house experience or the knowledge or the IP. You're going to get someone with similar experiences, but they often cannot replace somebody that has been there for a period of time. And quite frankly, do you want to hire the person that was here for today, or do you want to hire the person that's going to take us into tomorrow? So
what is stopping?
I can keep going. We got to back up.
But that pre-hire bit,
critical.
That sits within HR, does it? Or does that sit at department head?
Yeah, interesting point. Depends on the size of the company, right? Most often talent acquisition falls within HR. I would consider this the job of the talent acquisition team to drive this process, but it's got to be at the hiring manager level. And so as the recruiter or the person that's going to go find these people, it's my job to work with the hiring manager to ensure they know what they're looking for. So I would lead them through, or in the case of my business, Celica, we'll go in and lead companies through this, to do that workforce assessment, to do that job assessment, to sit down with their team and figure out what do they currently have, what's being utilized, what's not being utilized, where are the gaps, what are the future projects and the future needs about how we're going to get where we want to go 5-10 years from now. And I did identify that, but very much you have to work with that department, that hiring manager. So sometimes in companies that are large enough, they call them HR BPs, like HR business partners. Sometimes a talented recruiter could take it through this, or external consultants like us, whomever it may be.
Yeah.
But the point is, let's take the time to slow down.
I like that. So the relationship between HR and the department head that needs to be really involved in it.
100%, because they're busy running their department, and this is tough to do.
I know. And is that usually a tenuous relationship? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, often there's pointing fingers, right? Because every problem we have in a business, whether we're not selling enough or building enough or backfilling positions, often, it often comes back to recruiting, and there's frustration. And recruiters only have so much control when the product ultimately is people, right? We can't control people. We can't, no matter how great our ad is or our job description or our recruiting ability, we can't go out and get people we can't force them into the role or the opportunity, right? We have to work together with our partners, with our hiring managers. We have to be on the same page in terms of, let's make sure we know what we're looking for. That relationship needs to go throughout the experience. And I believe that talent acquisition and HR should be responsible to a very large extent to the employee's experience throughout, whether they're a candidate in the pre-hire phase and hiring phase or an employee in the post-hire phase. We need to drive a positive employee experience. But I think, unfortunately, we often don't start at the right place. And so you are destined for failure, if you will, if you don't take the time to figure out what we really need today. And I haven't even started to talk about identifying culture and values and how to identify those parts. I'm just talking the basic skill gap analysis.
So when I often, over time I've done speaking to HR people and all sorts of, a lot of them say that their job has changed so much that they came into HR wanting to be people-centric, wanting to have time, but they just feel they're doing a process all the time. Is there something, when you talk about culture, is there something about we've got to get back that caring culture in HR? And I know we're being generic here, and I know we're being a little bit controversial. I did say to Keith before we pressed record, I really believe there's no statues to the critics, which is a Roosevelt. And today I thought, Keith's having a very interesting experience coming over to Britain and obviously and working in Asia and Europe, and it's a gateway to other places. But he's particularly observed quite a different culture around recruitment since you've come here. You said it's very transactional, far too fast.
Yeah, listen, a lot of people would say that recruiting was born here in Britain and that it's been around a long time, and it definitely is a mature and seasoned industry. But I believe that it's more transactional here than anywhere else I've seen in the world. And we work across the world, as you said. So now there is a place for staffing companies. There is a place for recruiting companies, and there is a place for in-house recruiters. We have to do some of those things to fill the jobs. But if current statistics say that roughly 80%, 86% of hires made are the wrong people. 86% of our hires are the wrong people. So we're getting it right 14% of the time. I think we need to step back and fix some of the things that are broken in that upfront process. We could talk about pre-hire phase the whole time. At some point we get to the hire phase and how broken the current interview and selection process is. But we need to step back and think about, what do we really want? What do we really need on our team? And if we can do that, by the way, we're not only identifying a better new job to create and to go search for and to find and to interview people, but we're also tapping into our existing team better, right? If I have a resource on our team that wants to scratch another itch or try something else, or is passionate or has a desire to do something, and I don't give them the opportunity, what do? They start to look, right? Gallup says 70% of people would take a new job if given the opportunity right now. And given our soft market, it's even more. So when we rebound from a soft market, you'll see that number climb. So why don't we take the opportunity to figure out what they're passionate about and give them a chance to try something new and give that as a chance for them to develop and grow and focus us. So this effort in the pre-hire phase it is a big part about identifying who we need to hire, but it's also about taking care of our team, doing a workforce assessment so that we can increase our engagement, our production, and ultimately our retention as well.
And I presume when you're working with a company, when they really bring you in properly and you can really make your difference, you would also look inside the organization for that talent. And
without question.
Yeah, which there must be some very loyal, experienced talent that's currently in the wrong job internally, but could move across. Yeah.
Or the job shift, right? I remember at the start of COVID, I had a client reach out and say, hey, we have an incredible receptionist, but unfortunately we're closing our office because of COVID and we're all going home, but we don't have anything for her. Can you please help? And I said, sure, but let's take a look at your company first and where do you have needs? Of course, they had plenty of customer service needs of people that needed to be remote and do customer service. Who better to get on the phone with their customers that somebody that you could hear their smile through the phone, that knew the business, loved the business, was a part of their culture, was a part of building their culture and identifying who their core values were, but they weren't thinking outside of the box. I mean, look at AI now and what it's coming in to do. So, okay, maybe AI allows you to accomplish more of the automated tasks with less people. Well, those people that already know your business, perhaps are already bought into it and have gone through and gained that intellectual property, where else can we put them on the team? Because AI doesn't get rid of our need to grow or to solve other problems. And the toughest thing in recruiting, quite frankly, is finding people that are aligned to a culture or add to a culture and aligned to their values. And so why can't we take those people and find new seats or create new seats for them or challenge them to help us figure that out?
Yeah, I love that. So should we move on to the higher stage then?
Please,
Let's
yes.
move on. So again, I've asked Keith to be very honest here and might not make friends with everything you say. I know but what do you think about what's going on in that stage?
I don't make friends in this because I'm in the recruiting space, and the first thing I say is I don't like most recruiters. And so there's my jab. I'm sorry, recruiters, if you don't like that, but let's stop being transactional. Let's start being relationship based and culture based. The higher phase. Let's talk about a broken phase. Right now, we get people, however we source them, and assuming we're sourcing for the right thing, we bring them into an interview process and we ask them questions that we think we know what we're looking for. At the end of the day, though, most of today's interview processes are ultimately popularity contest and who walks away with a strong gut feeling saying, I like that person because I connected with them or I liked how they answered this or whatever it is. It is 100%, close to 100%, about their gut feeling and their gut reaction and about how I connected with that person. It is rarely about quantifiable information as to how they're going to add to our company, add to this role, add to our culture, align with our values. Some companies are getting better by doing psychometric assessments. Some companies are getting better by doing skill set assessments, or they're doing job shadows or day in the life, or they're doing kind of working interviews to some extent. There are good ways to do that. But the interview process itself is just, quite frankly, a broken process. We need to spend more time building a strategic approach to our interviews, getting very strategic in terms of our behavioral-based interviewing. Our STAR techniques is kind of a popular one. Our psychometric assessments, our skill assessments, our job shadowing, all these sorts of things to improve our data so that we are making more educated decisions, not based on emotions, not based on popularity or anything like that. Starting with training our hiring managers on how to interview. This should be a job of talent acquisition, should be a job of HR, depending on the size of the company, but we need to train them. What are the questions we need to ask? What are the things we're going to look for? And when we do hear something, how are we going to peel that onion back to get a little bit deeper, right? Because most times the best version of a candidate shows up to an interview. They're ready to answer the questions, the silly questions they hear. They're ready to answer even the tough questions. They've prepped their stories. That's the best they're going to get. We need to be prepared to peel back those onions, to go past that surface level stuff that we do in the interviews. And quite frankly, candidates also need to be prepared. It's broken on both sides here. Candidates come in and they typically get the best version of the company. They hear the good stories. They hear the positive things. They hear, the things that these hiring managers have become accustomed to answering and saying. And it's rarely talking about what are our problems or going into an honest conversation on that. And so candidates also need to be able to peel back the onion or look behind the curtain, if you will. We need to be more real and dive into that. And so we spend a lot of time with companies trying to help build out interview guides and train hiring managers on how to properly interview, how to peel those things back, how to incorporate different assessment tools and things like that to put some more data into this. Let alone how to really look at someone's resume. In today's world, As much as we love AI and chat GBT, for instance, a candidate can take a job description, can take their resume and say, make it perfect, right? And send it
Wow.
in. And then they can say, what are the questions I'm going to be asked and what's a good answer? And they can
Yeah.
sit there and they can rehearse that and they can come in and knock it out of the park. We could go interview for any job. I could go interview to be a doctor today. And if I took a little time to study what chat told me, I could probably get the job. Now, hopefully they'd check some references and there'd be some accreditations and things like that to check into. But it's so odd. Another part of the hiring phase, references. How many times have you ever taken a job or hired somebody and said, let me get your references? And then we call the references. What do you think the people that they give to you are going to say? Are they going to say something bad? But that's still who we call. You know, you give me your 3 references and I'll call your 3 references, and they're your friends, your former people that you had relationships with. I don't expect them to say bad things. And quite frankly, a lot of times they can't say bad things. The references that matter are the ones that you don't give me. It's the people at the businesses that I can connect to that, you know, we know about because of our knowledge and because of our, you know,
Yeah.
reaching out and finding these people that can tell me good things about them, even when they weren't on the reference list. So again, there's just a lot of opportunity to tighten up that hiring phase. That's assuming we actually know what the job is we're looking for, and we took the time in pre-hire phase. That's assuming we know how to ask questions about culture and values. You know, the K for in Celica, my business name, stands for kindness, one of our core values. We talk about leading with kindness and treating people with the platinum rule, treating people the way they want to be treated in every interaction. No matter what we do, we're going to lead with kindness. So how do you interview for kindness? Are you looking for a smile? Are you looking for opportunities where they've been kind? How do you measure one candidate versus another candidate in their kindness? But it matters because that's a core value to us. If you're not operating with every decision with the idea of kindness and paying it forward and doing the right thing and all the other subtext that comes with kindness, then you're not going to add to our culture. You're going to hurt our culture, right? If you're not aligned with that.
Yeah.
So how can we interview and how can we train our hiring managers to go through that question?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I love that. You're so right on that. And so before we move on to the post-recruitment, well, and maybe it's a segue into it, the cost of recruiting badly to companies must be huge.
Yeah, the cost of recruiting badly. There are a lot of different stats on this. And again, it's said that 86% of hires are wrong, therefore only 14% of the ones are right. So 86% of the time, we arguably hire the wrong person or we put them into the wrong seat. 94% of people, and I'm making up a lot of stats, but these are all actually stats that I've read and seen and verified. 94% of people would say that they are chronically work stressed. I mean, think of the 10 people in your life today, over 9 of them are chronically work stressed. Number one reason, poor job fit. People say they leave managers. Often it's their managers that are giving them direction for their job, which then leads to poor job fit, frustration with managers, frustrations with relationships. Yes, they leave managers over companies, but ultimately they're leaving because of poor job fit. Could also be poor culture alignment, things like that. But so 94% of people leave on these jobs. I'm going to pull back to where I was going to on this. Mm-hmm. The idea that, sorry, I got distracted there somehow.
Well, we're talking about the impact of poor recruitment.
Oh, impact of poor recruitment.
Yeah,
yes.
the impact of it.
The numbers are jumping at me here.
Yeah.
Some say it's anywhere between 5 to 10% of their annual salary, depending what sort of role it is, right? If it's a revenue producing role, if it is a person that is extremely difficult to find or very unique, and therefore it takes longer to fill it. A statistic that I've heard, and this came from Career Builder, one of the major global job boards out there, is that every day a job goes unfilled, it costs 1% of that person's annual salary. So not even talking about doing the bad hire. Let's just say you've hired somebody bad and now the job is sitting vacant. Every day that we are spending costs directly on recruiters in-house or outside agencies, they're spending time, money. Every interview we go to, the hiring managers are spending time, money. Every direct cost of advertising the job or posting the job, every indirect cost of lost opportunity because now no one's in the seat producing revenue, doing whatever it is. But 1% of revenue per day. So if you hire somebody bad, we can talk about the money you've burned during that period. You can talk about the impact to your culture, perhaps if they weren't a culture alignment. We often talk about culture carriers, good ones, or culture killers, and the impact culture killers can have on the rest of your team and the rest of the environment, because you're going to lose culture carriers when you have culture killers. So you're going to lose good. So there's a lot of other costs there, but let's just say the job is now open and it's going to take you another 3 months to backfill the job. Or in the UK, where you have an extended notice period. Thankfully, in the US, notice period is only 2 weeks. Here, 6 months, right? And so 6 months at 1%. So if we have a $100,000 job, we're talking about $50,000 just in direct cost of lost, let alone whatever that person is in there producing, or that you're now putting onto somebody else that's burning them out, or all the other indirect impacts of that. So a statistic, just to kind of be conservative, is the cost of a bad hire often rounds up to about 5 times the annual salary. That's a conservative number.
And it's the
also other people say it's much more extreme.
Yeah, and I suppose to a certain extent we have to consider also the impact on the individual, you know, who is in this environment that's not right for them. Now, it's interesting when I talk to you, because you obviously were doing recruitment and pre-internet before it really got a hold. And I mean, I think we're all starting to look at, I remember somebody saying to me that change happens like a seesaw. You get massive change and we all go that way, and then we all end up going that way. I'm basically showing, if you're listening rather than watching, I'm showing a seesaw tilting in opposite ways. Eventually you balance out, and I feel that we've gone too far digital, we've gone too far. There is no doubting the statistics you've given, the cost of mental well-being on people. It's all coming out, and I get a sense from talking to you, this human-centric, very deep way that you want to help companies.
I want to help people, the people within those companies. Because the mental tolls, like you said, it's on the candidates, it's on the hiring managers, it's on their peers, their coworkers, it's on the person that should have gotten the job that didn't. It's on everybody. And if 94% of people that are working are chronically work stressed, what's the stress level of those that aren't working, or you know, oh my goodness, and how bad that is.
And going through a whole recruitment process. I remember somebody I know, one friends from one of my kids' university days, applied to AWS for, it was 7 grueling interviews over a lot of time, a lot of creating presentations, huge amount. They didn't resent it, but they actually, and they went, you know, down and down in terms of the people being hired, you know, you're now in the last 10, you're now. But when they said no, it was like they didn't exist as a human at all anymore. It was, and it doesn't leave you with a good feeling about a brand.
No.
When you do that to someone, because they've given up a lot of hope and faith in this job, but also their self-worth and huge amounts of time and days off work, so that they've taken holiday time to be able to do it. I just think there's abuse happening when I hear things like that. It's not good for the morale of the country if a lot of people are being treated like that.
Right. There's abuse happening on both sides. I mean, we talk a lot about the frustrations that candidates have of being ghosted nowadays, right? They send in their resume and they never ever hear back, or they send in their resume to a bigger brand like you just mentioned, and they'll hear back 6 months later about something, which is utterly ridiculous. But the same happens on the other side, right? Recruiters reach out to candidates, and for decades, candidates have been ghosting recruiters, and they only call us back when they need a job, but they don't want to network in between and things like that. We need to improve the relationship. Talking about, you know, the transition of tech into this. And I was talking about this with another BIPper recently about AI. I think you posted an article on it, but there's nothing wrong with these tools, but they need to be tools, not solutions. And we need to use them to make us better, to make us more efficient, to improve our communication, to improve our ability to have greater, deeper conversations with the right candidates.
And give us time, use them to give us time to be more human-centric.
To give us that time back. Exactly right. And so now it's tricky. It's tricky when a candidate can fake their resume, you know, with a chat, or it's tricky when companies right now will post jobs that aren't real jobs just to kind of build up their buckets and to make it look like they're busy and hiring. And there's all sorts of deceitful things out there right now. So there are definitely bad things out there. But if we step back and try to put the tools in the right place, leverage them the right way, there is a good way to do this. There is still a positive employee experience possible. There's still a successful hiring experience. We can take that 14% of good hires and get that a heck of a lot closer to 100%. There is no perfect magic formula. And the 11,000 some people now have helped hire, I still don't have the exact formula, but we can get a lot closer to 100%. But even when we don't get to the 100%, and I talk about this often with our team, on average, we'll talk to about 100 or so candidates for any given job. One candidate gets the job, meaning 99 people don't. I think those 99 relationships are just as important as the one. We need them to leave with an enthusiastic experience. That's our E in Calica. It stands for enthusiasm. We need to leave them with an enthusiastic experience. And even though they didn't get the job, they still love us, or they still love our client, because they are all future customers. They're all future clients. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, they're people, and they deserve a good experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know why more people don't think like that, or they may think it, but they're just not finding the way to have the time to apply some of these values, which we all deep down have. They're just not.
We're all trying to go faster,
I know.
and we're going faster in the wrong places.
Yeah. So for a couple of minutes, let's talk about this other area, which is so important, which is what happens once somebody is hired and you've got this post-hiring phase. What's so critical at that stage?
So post-hire. So let's assume we took our time in the pre-hire and we know who we're hiring and we're hiring the right people. And let's assume in the hire phase that we did a good job of interviewing, qualifying, and getting the right candidate to join the team. And I remember I learned this a long time ago from a speaker, Jack Daly, and then I learned it from LinkedIn as well.
I know Jack so well.
Is that right? Yeah, love Jack. Jack always would talk about, and I'll come back to it. LinkedIn said 30% of people make up their mind on day one of their first job, whether or not they see a long-term potential fit or not. So I walk in, it's my first day on the job, and I've got a 30% chance that I'm saying, no, thanks. This is not my place. I don't see it. I'm going to go back and I'm going to answer those other calls of the people that are still calling me, because I've been replying to a lot of jobs, and they're not going to stick it out long term. And in today's world, that's okay. They jump a lot faster than they used to. So, but what do we do? And I love when Jack said this. Someone leaves the company, we throw a party, which I actually think is a good idea, right? If they've been a part of the team and the culture, we should throw a party. But someone starts at a new job, and what do we do on their first day? We have them fill out a bunch of paperwork. We show them where the cafeteria is. We show them where the bathrooms are. It is a boring, typically pretty downer sort of day. Why don't we throw a party on day one when an employee comes in? They're going to go home that day, talk to their significant others or their partners, or talk to their family, and everyone's going to say, how was your day? And do we want them to say, oh, it was good. I got my paperwork done and I signed my tax forms, and I learned how to log into my computer. Or even worse, I sat with IT for a couple hours while they figured out my computer because it wasn't ready, or whatever it may be. But that's the day one experience when 30% of people are making up their mind. So I always loved it when Jack would say, let's throw a party on day one. So when new people start at Calica, they come in, they've got all sorts of fun swag, everything's set up, ready to go. But don't even worry about that. Let's have some fun. So we play games. We do a introduction bingo where they get a bingo sheet with information about all their teammates, and they get to run around the office, and some remote, because now our team is hybrid, and they get to go and meet people and learn cool things about them, and not stuff about work, but about the people and who they are and what makes them tick, and silly things that they can do and all that sort of stuff. And it's a blast. And then we go out and we have a big lunch, and then, and this is their first day. We don't even really dive into our training. And we've got a kind of a 2-week classroom do and learn and all that sort of stuff training. But on day one, it's a party. And a lot of that goes back to Jack. So I got to give credit to that. So we've done all the things to hire the right person, but then the first experience on day one is out of the gates. Look further into post-hire. Let's talk about their first week. Let's talk about who they're spending time with. Let's talk about how are we engaging that person and bringing them into our culture. People talk about culture fit. So we can sit there and we can show them the dusty mission, statement on the wall, or we can talk about values or something like that. But let's put some live examples in. Let's have them go through an experience in the first couple of weeks where they're getting to live a value, or they're getting to experience a value, or they're getting to maybe even audit the business to an extent and push back and find it on themselves. We need to change that. And I would say the 30, 60, 90, but we need to be more strategic about engaging that person right out of the gates into the business, into the role, into their team, so that they are excited to come to work, and not just because it's a new job, but because they're buying into that purpose. That's what they hopefully joined us for. And
I love that. I'm thinking, when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, imagine a marriage starting off so bad on the first day, on your first date. The person sat down and did admin with you, and things like that.
But that's what happens, right? I mean, not in marriage, thankfully. Hopefully you have a little good party.
We show our best at the beginning, don't we? It might then deteriorate.
Right.
At least we show our best.
But I haven't thought about that analogy, Penny, but interesting. Maybe we should have a honeymoon first when we start a new job, right? Or something like that, just to hang out and get to know each other and things like that.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not against throwing a party the last day either, but
I like
the whole post-hire phase. The other interesting part, and I consider post-hire from once we make an offer to somebody to about 30, 60, 90. Obviously, at some point, we got to get into performance management and kind of more HR topics. But the phase between somebody accepting an offer and starting a job has lengthened, has changed. And in a global hybrid remote world, it is different now than it was 4 years ago. We are seeing an increasing number of candidates or companies pull the plug on new jobs in that phase. Why? And I think too often it's because we drop the communication. We have the last interview, then you only hear from HR about getting paperwork done, signing the offers, doing that sort of stuff. Why aren't our hiring managers having touch points at least weekly or every other day? Or why aren't we sitting down and taking them out to lunch and getting to know them on a personal level or connecting with them? Why aren't we spending more time with them up front? So when they do hit day 1, 2, it's not all in your face either, right? Why don't we have all the employees from the team reach out every other day? And so that way it's not all in one person, but the new hire gets a chance to meet folks. There's just stuff that we can do so much better.
A lot of it is actually about, they've joined a community, which is obviously we talk about the community values. They've joined a community. They want to have that sense of belonging. They want to be significant within that community. They want to be seen. They want to know that. So I really resonate with everything you say. So we're just at the top of the show now, unbelievably. So I hope you've all really enjoyed this. I have. I've loved this conversation with you, Keith. So we've talked about the pre-hire, the hire, and the post-hire. Talked about where there's some areas of being broken. If you would like to contact Keith, please, contact me or Thomas. We can put you in touch. But also, Keith's surname is spelled Langbo, Langbo. And Kellica, remind me of the website, Kellica's website.
It's KELACA.com.
There you go. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant conversation. I love the thought that you've come in here and that you're going to hopefully make a difference, make recruitment a bit more human-centric. And I must admit, I've witnessed it. Lots of people that I've known in recruitment, how transactional and hands-off they've become. And absolutely thrilled to be working with you, having you in the community, and thrilled to be introducing you to everybody through this podcast. So thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you again, Penny. It's been my honor.